The morning after Harold's last day at the mill, I woke up at 5:15 like always, made coffee, set out 2 mugs, and then I stood in the kitchen doorway and watched him just sit there, not reading the paper, not talking, not doing anything at all, just sitting at the table with his hands folded like a man in a waiting room who doesn't know what he's waiting for. And I thought, oh no. Nobody prepared him for this. Nobody prepared either of us, actually. And I have a strong suspicion that nobody is preparing you either. Because retirement advice, and Lord knows there's enough of it on the internet, is almost always about the money. Do you have enough? What's your number? How's your portfolio? And those things matter. I'm not going to sit here and pretend they don't. But I will tell you that Harold and I had enough money. We had the CDs at the credit union, the Christmas Club account, the careful Midwestern savings that took us 30-some years to build. The money was fine. What was not fine was everything else. So let me tell you what actually disappears. Not the stuff the financial planners warn you about, the things that sneak out through the back door while you're busy popping champagne and celebrating your last day. Because retirement is wonderful. I need to say that right up front. I loved it. I still love it. But it is also a heist. Things get stolen from you that you didn't even know you possessed. And by the time you notice they're missing, you've already spent 6 months wondering why your life feels like a shirt that doesn't fit anymore. The first thing that vanishes is your identity. And I don't mean that in some vague, philosophical, who am I really sort of way. I mean, someone asks you at the grocery store what you do, and you open your mouth and nothing comes out. I was a librarian at the Eau Claire Public Library for 34 years. 34 years of, I'm Peggy, I'm the librarian. Peggy the librarian. One word, practically. And then, one September afternoon, I returned my keys and my badge, and I walked out through the front doors instead of the staff entrance. I remember that specifically. I wanted to leave through the front. And I drove home, and I was just Peggy. No title, no role. Just a woman in a Buick with a box of desk things on the passenger seat. And just Peggy felt like arriving at a party where everyone has a name tag and yours fell off in the parking lot. Now Harold, he had it worse. Men of his generation, and I suspect men of your generation too, they wrap themselves around their work like vines around a post. Pull the post out and the vine just collapses on the ground. Harold was a foreman. He managed people. He solved problems. He mattered in a way that was concrete and daily. Take that away, and what was he? A man who was very good at fixing things in a house that didn't have much broken. Here's what I want you to do, and I mean this practically, not as some feel-good nonsense. If you are within 5 years of retiring, start introducing yourself differently. Practice it. Not, I'm a teacher, or I'm an accountant, or I work at Boeing. Try, I'm someone who builds birdhouses, or I'm getting into watercolors, or I read about the Civil War, or whatever the truth is. Get comfortable being a person instead of a profession. because that transition will hit you like a cold lake in April if you wade in unprepared. And most people wade in unprepared. The second thing that goes is your daily purpose. Harold felt this one the worst. At the mill, every morning had a shape to it. Clock in at 7, task list on the desk, lunch whistle at noon, clock out at 3:30. A man knew where he stood. He knew what came next. There was a track, and the train was on it. And then suddenly there's a Tuesday that looks exactly like Saturday, and Saturday looks exactly like Thursday, and none of them have edges. They just bleed into each other like watercolors left in the rain. Harold would wander into the kitchen around 10 in the morning, still in his undershirt, and say, "Peggy, what should I do?" And I'd look at him over my coffee and say, "Harold, I've been retired for 3 years. I'm still figuring that out myself. But here's the thing, I was figuring it out. Slowly. I had started volunteering at the elementary school, reading to children on Wednesday mornings. I had my garden. I had my books. I had my Tuesdays with Ruth Ann Peterson, where we'd drive to that little bakery in Menominee and split a cinnamon roll and talk about absolutely nothing important, and it was the highlight of my week. Harold didn't have any of that yet, and it scared him. I could see it in the way he'd stand at the window with his hands in his pockets, watching the street like he was waiting for someone to come tell him what to do. So here's the advice, and I mean it. Build a morning routine before you need one, while you're still working, even a small one. Harold eventually found his. He started walking to the post office every morning, whether we had mail coming or not. He'd stop at Donna's Cafe, order a coffee, sit at the counter, talk to whoever was there. Donna always had the Chippewa Herald on the counter and the Packers on the radio, and it wasn't fancy, but it was his. It sounds silly when I say it out loud. It saved him. It genuinely saved him. The third thing that vanishes, your spending courage. This one surprised me more than any of the others. Harold and I had saved for decades. Decades. We were children of people who lived through the Depression. My mother reused aluminum foil. Harold's father kept rubber bands in a ball the size of a grapefruit. We internalized that. Every spare dollar went somewhere safe and boring, and we were proud of it. And then we retired, and we could not spend the money. We physically could not do it. We'd go to a restaurant, the Livery, over on Barstow Street, and Harold would open the menu and say, "$12 for a sandwich, Peggy?" And I'd say, "Harold, we can afford it." And he'd close the menu and order the soup, because $9 felt safer than $12. $3 felt like the difference between responsible and reckless, even though it wasn't, even though we had more than enough. We went on like that for years, years. I'm ashamed to say how many. We had money sitting in accounts doing nothing, while we denied ourselves small pleasures because spending felt like sinning. We talked about driving to see the Grand Canyon for probably a decade. Every spring, Harold would say, "Maybe this fall." And every fall, he'd say, "Maybe next spring." And then one spring, he couldn't drive long distances anymore because of his heart. and we never went. We never saw the Grand Canyon. We had the money the whole time. It just sat there like a guard dog protecting an empty house. If this is you, if you're the type who checks the price before the description, who calculates the per-ounce cost of shampoo, who feels a little twist of guilt buying the good coffee, start practicing now. Buy the $12 sandwich. Take yourself out once a week, not because you need to be extravagant, but because you need to train your hands to let go of the money you spent your life earning. That money has a job. Its job is your life. Let it do its work. Because I promise you, you do not want to be sitting in a kitchen at 87 looking at a bank statement and a list of places you didn't go. Fourth, your risk tolerance. I watched our neighbor Gene Halverson, good man, quiet, kept the nicest lawn on Birch Street. I watched him lose about 30% of his retirement savings in 2008. He was 72. His wife Barb came over one afternoon that October and sat at my table and cried. Not because they were going to be homeless, they weren't, but because Gene had stopped sleeping. He was up at 3 a.m. checking numbers on the computer. He aged 5 years in 6 months. Barb said he looked at her one night and said, "I can't earn this back, Barb. There's no earning it back." When you're working and the market drops, there's a safety net inside your mind. You think, okay, this is bad, but I'm still putting money in every paycheck. I'll ride it out. I've got time. When you're retired and the market drops, that safety net vanishes. You think, that's my grocery money disappearing. That's my heating bill. That's the trip we promised the grandkids. It's not abstract anymore. It's Tuesday and your life is shrinking on a screen. So before you retire, and I'm talking a full year before, at least, sit down with someone who understands money, a financial advisor, a sharp friend, your brother-in-law who actually reads that stuff. Make sure your savings aren't sitting somewhere that's going to give you a heart attack on a bad Tuesday in October. Gene eventually recovered most of what he lost, by the way. But Barb told me the fear never fully left him. That's the part the charts don't show you. Fifth thing that vanishes, and nobody warns you about this one, is your social life. Not your friends, your social life. There's a difference, and it matters. Harold had men at the mill he talked to every single day for 20-some years. Dave Kowalski, who always smelled like pine pitch and told the same 4 jokes on rotation. Pete Lindgren, who knew everything about cars and nothing about women and would be the first to admit it. Big Jim Schultz, who everybody called Big Jim, even though he was maybe 5'6" in his work boots. They were Harold's people, his daily people, and within 4 months of him retiring, he'd seen Dave exactly once. Pete moved to Arizona to be near his daughter. Big Jim just sort of faded. No fight, no falling out, just the slow evaporation that happens when the thing holding people in the same room disappears and there's nothing to replace it. Harold didn't talk about it much because Harold didn't talk about most things much. But I noticed. I noticed the way he'd mentioned Dave in conversation. Dave would have gotten a kick out of that, with a tone that told me he missed the man, but didn't know how to say so, and definitely didn't know how to pick up a telephone and do something about it. So here's what I'm telling you. Call someone today. Not tomorrow, not when you get around to it. Today. Someone you currently see only because of work. And make a plan with them that has nothing to do with work. Go fishing. Get a coffee. Sit on a porch. Whatever it is, anchor that relationship to something other than a shared employer, because the day you retire, that relationship is going to need its own gravity, or it will float away, and you will miss it more than you expect. Sixth, your sense of relevance. This one is quiet and it's mean. It doesn't announce itself. It just slowly dims the lights. At the library, people needed me. Teachers called asking me to pull research materials for lesson plans. Children came in after school, and I knew their names, every one of them. The mayor once called my direct line to ask about the town's literacy program. I mattered in a way that was visible and daily and public. And then I didn't. I mean, I still mattered. To Harold, to Karen and Thomas, to Mildred the cat who doesn't care about relevance as long as dinner arrives on time. But the public mattering, the being needed by strangers part, that just evaporated. And I did not realize how much warmth it had been providing until the warmth was gone and I was standing in a slightly colder room, wondering what changed. Volunteer somewhere. I know that sounds like the generic advice your human resources department puts in the retirement brochure next to clip art of a smiling couple on a beach. But I mean it specifically, and I mean it selfishly. Find a place where someone will say your name when you walk through the door and be genuinely glad you showed up. For me, it was the Wednesday reading at the elementary school. I'd walk in and these little voices would go, "Mrs. Olson is here! Mrs. Olson!" Like I was famous, like I was the most important part of their Wednesday. That is medicine. That is medicine you cannot buy at any pharmacy, and no financial advisor is going to prescribe it for you. But you need it. Trust me, you need it. Seventh, and Harold would groan straight to heaven if he heard me talking about this publicly. Your health starts talking louder. Not because you're suddenly sicker than you were the week before you retired, but because you're suddenly quiet enough to hear what your body has been trying to tell you for years. When you're working, you ignore the knee. You push through the fatigue. You skip the annual checkup because Thursday's booked solid and you'll reschedule, and then you don't. Your body sends you letters and you throw them away unopened. Then you retire and Thursday is wide open and the house is quiet and you're sitting there and you think, "Oh, my knee actually hurts quite a lot. Oh, I'm actually exhausted by 2 in the afternoon. Oh, that thing in my chest isn't just stress." Harold put off seeing Dr. Rasmussen about his heart for I don't even know how long. Too long. That's all I'll say, because it's all that matters. Too long. By the time he went, the options were narrower than they should have been. And I sat in that waiting room on a plastic chair thinking about all the Thursdays he could have gone and didn't. Go to the doctor this week while you still think you don't need to. That's the whole window, the entire window, right there. The moment you think you might need to go, you've already lost time that you cannot get back. Make the appointment today. I don't care if you feel fine. Fine is not a diagnosis. Fine is what Harold said for 3 years. 8th, your patience for nonsense. Now this one's actually a gift. I stopped attending committee meetings that circled the same drain for 2 hours. I stopped finishing books I didn't enjoy past page 40. Life is too short for a bad novel. I stopped pretending to like Gladys Decker's potato salad at the church potluck. I'd been pretending since 1978. 30-some years of, "Oh, Gladys, this is wonderful." It was not wonderful. It tasted like wallpaper paste with celery in it. And one Sunday I just didn't put any on my plate, and Gladys noticed, and I said, "I'm watching my sodium, Gladys," which was a lie, but a kind one. Retirement gives you permission to stop performing, to stop attending things out of obligation, to stop saying yes when your whole body is saying no. That part is beautiful. But, and I need to say this, be careful with it, because the line between not tolerating nonsense and becoming difficult is thinner than a communion wafer. And I crossed it a few times, especially with Karen. I said things to my daughter that were honest but not kind. Blunt observations about her parenting, about her husband Richard's career choices, about the way she was raising my grandchildren. I told myself I was being helpful. I was not being helpful. I was being a woman who had lost her filter and was calling it wisdom. Honesty without kindness is just cruelty with a permission slip. Remember that. Write it on your refrigerator if you have to. 9th thing that vanishes, your sense of time. It speeds up, outrageously, disrespectfully. I remember Harold saying to me one evening, in what I was absolutely certain was June, "Peggy, it's October." I looked at the calendar on the kitchen wall, the one from the credit union with the covered bridges, and he was right. A whole summer had passed like a bird off a wire. Gone. I couldn't tell you a single thing that distinguished July from August from September. They all just poured into each other like water finding its level. This happens because of how memory works. When you're working, your brain is making bookmarks constantly. Monday, you had that awful meeting. Wednesday, the copier broke. Friday, your boss said something that made you want to scream. Those are markers. Your brain grabs onto them and uses them to organize time. When every day has roughly the same pleasant, unstructured shape, your brain stops bookmarking. And without bookmarks, a year reads like a blank page. So make bookmarks, deliberately. Plan a trip in March. Doesn't have to be expensive, just different. Start a project in May. Sign up for something in September that you can look forward to. Harold and I started doing this after that lost summer. We'd sit down in January with the calendar and put things on it. Not big things necessarily. Lunch with the Petersons in February. The craft fair in Menominee in April. Thomas's birthday trip in July. And suddenly the year had shape again. It had handholds. Without landmarks, the years just pour through your fingers, and one morning you're sitting in a kitchen wondering where a decade went. And the 10th thing, the one I really wish someone had sat me down and told me about, is that your marriage changes. Completely. Harold and I had a wonderful marriage. I've said that before, and I mean it sincerely. But our marriage was built around absences. He left the house at 6 in the morning. I left at 8:30. We returned in the evening and came together like two rivers meeting after running separate courses all day. The meeting was the good part, the anticipation of seeing each other, the little report of the day. Jean's lawn looks ridiculous, Peggy. Mrs. Winkler returned a book with maple syrup on page 47, Harold. Small exchanges, but they were ours. And then suddenly we were both home, all day, every day. And the rivers had no place to separate, so there was no meeting. We were just there, together, constantly, in a 1,200 square foot house with one television and one bathroom. And I love Harold, loved him with every quiet corner of my heart. But by month 3, I wanted to lock myself in the basement just to miss him for an hour. We argued about things that were really about nothing. He chewed too loudly. I reorganized the hall closet, and he couldn't find his boots. He started watching the news at a volume that suggested he thought I too should be watching the news. I started going to the library, not because I needed a book, but because I needed a door to walk through that he wasn't on the other side of. It took us about a year, a full year of bumping into each other, of small irritations, of learning that retirement doesn't just change your schedule, it changes the architecture of your relationship. We had to renegotiate the quiet. We had to rediscover that we still chose each other, even without the structure of work pushing us apart and pulling us back together. That bench by Lake Altoona, the one with the chipped green paint and the view of the water that made everything slow down, that became our place, our new meeting point. We'd drive out there on Thursday afternoons with sandwiches and a thermos and just sit. Sometimes we talked, sometimes we didn't, but it was chosen togetherness, not forced proximity, and that made all the difference in the world. Talk to your partner before you retire. Not about the 401k, not about the pension, about space. About what Tuesday at 2 in the afternoon looks like when you're both home and there's nowhere either of you needs to be. About which rooms are whose. About when you need to be alone and how to say that without it sounding like rejection. That conversation will save you more than any financial plan ever could. I'm 91 years old. Mildred the cat is asleep on the radiator where the sun hits it just right around 3 o'clock. The house is quiet in the way I've always liked it. Not empty quiet, full quiet. And I want you to know something. Retirement is the best chapter of your life if you walk into it with your eyes open. But nobody hands you a flashlight at the door. You have to bring your own, and if you don't have one, if you're standing at the edge of it feeling excited and terrified in equal measure, which is exactly how you should feel, Then consider this one mine to you. Go easy on yourself. Go easy on your person. Call the doctor. Buy the sandwich. And for heaven's sake, go see the Grand Canyon while you still can. I didn't. Don't be me about that.